Visto show June 7th, 7/7/2023. Hope everybody is doing well. We got a big show today because it's been yet another crazy week in Canadian immigration. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you're having a good day. Heidi says, hello, Josh. Rohan says, what are your thoughts about the no program draws? Oh, Rohan, we're going deep. We're going deep on Express Entry today. As you can see, first of all, as usual, if you could just drop a hello or let me know with a thumbs up. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Is the audio quality okay? My sounds are looking like they're okay. I just want to make sure that everybody can see me and hear me okay. As you can see from the agenda, on the left, on my right, Patrick says, hey Josh. Hey Patrick, how you doing? We got some big topics to discuss today. Number one is the Express Entry, what I'm calling the Express Entry Extravaganza that happened this week, right? Just when we thought Express Entry was going to settle in and maybe go back to normal and maybe be predictable, boy, were we wrong. In fact, as I'm saying this, we just had another IRCC news release about Express Entry that we're going to talk about. So there's a lot to talk about. I'm going to jump right in. The first thing that we're going to talk about is the Express Entry Extravaganza that happened this week. There were 3 draws. I'm going to go into full detail. I'm going to share my opinions, my thoughts, my guesses into the future. And then they're all going to be ruined next week when they do another crazy round of draws. But anyways, maybe not. We're going to talk about French-speaking draws, which haven't happened yet. Oh no, wait, what the heck? They just did a French language proficiency draw today. I didn't even know that. They just did a 4th draw. Holy crap. Okay, we got even more to talk about today. Holy crap. Okanzoyi says hello. Nicole says audio is great. Thank you, Nicole. Thanks for tuning in. Umar says audio and video are checkmark. I will take that as a good thing. Guys, thanks for tuning in live. I appreciate it. Keep in mind, so what we're going to talk about today is the Express Entry Extravaganza that just keeps on giving. I didn't even know this. They did a 4th draw of the week today. So we'll go into full details. We're going to talk about the French-speaking draws. We're going to talk about a little bit of immigration and AI overlap, especially because one of my articles went live this week that I wrote for CELA on how I think immigration and AI are going to merge over the next couple of years. We're going to talk about Visto updates because, heck, this is called the Visto show. And it says Q&A at the end. As many of you know who've tuned into the Visto show before, I like to take questions and comments throughout. Right? So if I'm talking about Express Entry and you have some thoughts or questions about Express Entry, throw them into the chat. If I'm talking about the French-speaking draws and you have some questions about the French-speaking draws or some opinions, throw them into the chat. I check them all live. I try to keep my eye on the chat throughout the whole. I can't get to everything sometimes. It's harder than I expected, honestly. 2 screens, keeping an eye on chat while talking, while keeping my train of thought. Anyways, so let's jump in. It's Friday. At least here in Toronto, it's Friday at noon. Still got a busy afternoon ahead of us, which is great. So I'm going to jump right the heck in to, first and foremost, this Express Entry Extravaganza, right? So this here are the ministerial instructions. Let me just refresh the page. For all I know, they just did a 5th draw without me even knowing. I'm going to link to it in the chat so that you all can follow along with me if you would prefer. Basically, what happened this week is that IRCC has now done 4 draws in 1 week, right? So let's start with the first one. And again, if any of you have thoughts, comments, you're surprised, you're not surprised, please feel free to throw them in the chat. The first draw, that they did 4 days ago, that makes it Tuesday, was an all-program draw inviting 700 people to apply with a minimum score requirement of 510, right? Now, this was a clear indicator, this number here was a clear indicator to me that there was more to come, right? Because if you scroll back in time, IRCC typically does all program draws in the thousands, right? 3,000, 4,000, 7,000. So on Tuesday, when they did an Express Entry all program draw and they only invited 700 people, I don't know about you, but something stuck out in my head, right? My first thought was, why is this draw so small? Right? Now, the answer to that question is usually because there's another draw coming, right? So, for example, for two draws in a row, they invited 4,800 people to apply. And then on June 27th, they only invited 4,300 people to apply. Why is that? Well, because the next day they were doing a healthcare occupations draw, right? So when I saw that there were only 700 people invited to apply in this all program draw, my first thought was, okay, well, I guess we're going to see some more draws this week. Now, little did I know at that point that they were going to do 3 additional draws, but here we are, right? So the next day, July 5th, as promised, I want to give IRCC credit, right? As many of you know, I have been a little tough on IRCC over the last few months, but I also like to think that I'm a man who will give credit where it's due, right? Last week, when I did the Visto show last week, I mentioned that in IRCC's update, they said that they would be opening STEM occupation. I forget what the exact terminology was, but it was, we're going to be opening the STEM occupation draws starting on July 5th. And you can go back and watch that Visto show where I say, what does that mean? Does opening the draws mean they're going to start the draws on the 5th? And I thought that was weird because that was only in 1 week, right? Normally IRCC waits 2 weeks before doing draws. To IRCC's credit, I don't know why they just didn't say we're going to do the first STEM occupation draw on July 5th. I found the wording a little bit weird. But they did the first STEM occupation draw on July 5th. Good for them. That's awesome. I was kind of intrigued by the fact that they only invited 500, right? So let's go back to my original line of thinking. IRCC only invited 700. That's weird. Why is the number so small? Usually they like to invite, 4,000 to 5,000 people at once, right? Then they do a draw the next day, only inviting 500 people. So let's bring up our handy dandy calculator. And for those like Umar who can't add these numbers in their head, you know what I mean? No offense, Umar, I love you. That's 1,200 people, right? So again, the thinking in my head is, well, where's the other 3,000 that they normally invite, right? Little did I know, the next day, July 6th, this is yesterday, they do another healthcare occupations draw, inviting 1,500 people to apply, right? So now, as you see here, they did their first healthcare occupations draw last week on the 28th. They invited 500 people. A week later, they do another healthcare draw, inviting 1,500 people. Now let's do some basic math. What's 1,200 plus 1,500? That's 2,700 people, right? So I guess that begs the question, well, where's the rest? So probably I should have been expecting another draw today, but I didn't think they were going to do 4 draws in 1 week. I don't know about the rest of you. Maybe some of you have some thoughts or you could see this coming. I personally could not see this coming. And so today, if you're on our email list, which you damn well better be, let me put the link in the comments here. I have an email list where every week I send an email with major Canadian immigration news, right? So if you're not already on it, make sure to join that email list. I sent an email this morning saying, oh my God, it was a crazy week. We had 3 draws. Meanwhile, an hour later, there was a 4th draw, right? So today, for the first time ever, they do a French language proficiency draw, and I'll look into the requirements of that in just a minute, inviting 2,300 people to apply. So now if we add these all up, we get 5,000, right? Nice clean number, 5,000. That makes sense, right? So I think they're done with the draws this week, right? Not that that's saying much because it's Friday afternoon. But anyways, what a crazy week. I didn't think that they were going to split it up so much, right? So my guess was that they were going to wait 1 more week and then do something similar like an all-program draw where they invite, 4,000, and then maybe do a STEM draw where they invite 500 to 1,000, right? Just like they did with the healthcare occupations. They didn't. They went ham, and they did a STEM, healthcare, and French language proficiency draw all in the same week. What do I think about that? Good question. I think it's great. I don't know about you folks. Let me know what you think in the comments. I think that doing these industry-specific draws are brilliant, and I think they should have started them 5 years ago, right? Maybe not 5, maybe 3 to 4 years ago. I've been saying it for years. I think Express Entry is a great program, but it's too broad, right? So it's great that they have the points-based system, but the problem with the points-based system and what was happening was express entry invites were going to 28-year-old PhDs, right? Who then would come to Canada, and as the joke goes, right, Canada has the most PhDs driving taxi cabs, right? Pardon my French there. I don't mean to offend anybody, right? Where do we really have shortcomings? In healthcare, in STEM, in, the trades, stuff like that. And the interesting part about Express Entry is we know all that information, right? Part of their Express Entry profile is we have their knock code. We know what their work experience is like. So why aren't we just inviting the people that we need the most? So when I initially saw the industry-specific stuff announced, I was very happy. I wish it would have started earlier, but better late than never, right? So here we are. I think it's great, and I hope that they continue doing them. And I guess we'll just have to see, right? The reason why... So when I initially... The reason why Express Entry was a little bit more reliable in the past was they got into a rhythm. And when they get into a rhythm, you, as an immigration lawyer or professional, it becomes easier to advise clients on what might be coming next. As you can see from the last month or two, it's just a total smorgasbord. So we have no idea what the heck is going to come next. If I had to guess, they'll hopefully get back into a rhythm where every 2 weeks they'll do maybe like a small all-program draw, and then they'll do 1 or 2 or 3 industry-specific draws, right? But I think we can all agree that some of these industry-specific programs are where we really are, lacking. And so I think it makes sense. In terms of the requirements, I'll link to you folks the key website that breaks down each one. Here we go. Here's the link here. So if you're curious, right, like what does French language proficiency mean? What does a healthcare draw mean? What does a STEM draw mean? You can go to this link and scroll to the bottom and just click on each one and it'll tell you what it means. Right? So for example, to be eligible under the French language proficiency category, you need to have taken one of their eligible French language tests with a minimum of 7 in all 4 abilities. And then meet the requirements of the instructions in that round. So that basically means like the minimum score requirements, right? You have to be in the pool with the minimum, etc. Healthcare, you can see accumulated within the past 3 years at least 6 months of continuous work experience in a single occupation listed in the table. And then you can see right here they have the table of knock codes. So I actually think I can commend IRCC. I think that this is great. I think the industry-specific draws are great. I hope that they continue to do them. And I hope that they year to year continue to evaluate where the biggest needs are in our industry and adjusting them accordingly, right? Because, for example, we may not need trades in 3 years. We probably will, if I had to guess. But you know what I mean, right? Our needs as a country and a labor market may change, so it'll be interesting to see over time. Snehal says, do we have any updates on the Digital Nomad program, if you can cover it as part of this show? Snehal, it's a good question. I don't have any updates other than what was mentioned in the original announcement, right? So nothing beyond that. I think that probably in the next few months, as they flesh out the program, we will get more details, and whenever they do, I will certainly cover them. I want to quickly go back up to Rohan's comment, who says, what are your thoughts about no program draws? Do you speculate any score? 511 score seems too unreal. So Rohan, it's a good question. I was surprised, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts, right? If anybody else has thoughts, opinions, feedback on the draws, I'm very curious to hear them. Let me go back to where was the specific? Oh, here it is. I was surprised, Rohan, about how small it was, right? So I thought what IRCC was going to do was continue to kind of do what they did last week, right? Which was invite a majority all program and then do a small amount of industry specific, right? So, and I think even if you go back and watch my last Visto show, you'll be able to see this too, is I think that my guess was They were going to do another all-program draw of 4,300, and they were going to do a STEM draw of 500. That was my guess. And, I'm an honest guy, right? I'll admit it when I got it wrong. I certainly wouldn't have guessed that this was going to happen, right? I don't know about you. But it was a big surprise. I'm very surprised at how small the invitation amount was for all program. And I wonder if this is going to affect a lot of the people who are considering coming to Canada who don't fall under these certain industries, right? So for example, if you're not, let me pull it up on a separate thing here. If you're not, hold on, I need to buy about 3 more seconds. If you're not a French speaker in healthcare, in STEM, in the trades, in transport, or in agriculture or agri-food, this is going to make it a lot harder for you to come to Canada through express entry, right? So my concern is if you're somebody who was previously very interested in coming to Canada, but you don't fall under these, you might start looking towards other countries, right? I mean, let me know. Maybe that's some of you who are watching live right now, right? I don't know. You tell me, right? But my thinking is the people who do fall under one of these industries are going to be very excited. The people who don't are all of a sudden really fighting an uphill battle, right? Because look at this. 700 people invited to apply, minimum score of 511. That's a big score requirement, as you said, Rohan. So I was very surprised by it. I don't know if it's right or wrong, to be honest. I don't know what the best strategy is, but I don't think this is a bad thing. That's my opinion. Let's jump back to the comments. Paul says, "Hi Josh, industry specific is great, but for a moment I can only think it worked against me this once. Updated my profile with language testing this week and now sat at 499 in STEM, so maybe some patience and better luck next." Yeah, so Paul, if we look at STEM, but Paul, you should have gotten an invite through STEM, no? Minimum score requirement of 486 if you meet the STEM requirements. Now, maybe you just started working in STEM, Paul. I don't know if you can provide further information. But if you're in the pool 499 and you're eligible under the STEM occupations, you should have gotten an invite, no? Unless I'm misinterpreting this. But yes, depending on which industry you're working in, it may or may not affect, how promising express entry might be to you. Yoel says, "Hi, how are you?" Hey, Yoel, I am doing great. Hopefully you're doing well too. So I'm going to wrap that up unless there's any more comments, questions, or thoughts about express entry. I think this is going to be very interesting to keep an eye on over the next few months to see what happens. If you have any guesses, let me know in the comments. My guess is they're going to go back to doing every 2 weeks, and they'll do like a small to medium-sized all-program draw, and then they'll do small to medium-sized industry-specific draws as they see fit. Right? I don't know how that's going to look yet, right? Like, are they going to do these 3 this week, and then in 2 weeks they're going to do trade, transpo, and agriculture, and then 2 weeks later they'll go back to doing STEM, healthcare, and French, and then 2 weeks later they'll go back to doing trade, transport, and agra? I don't know, right? So time will tell. I guess we'll have to find out soon. All right? So let's move on to the next topic. I did want to talk about French-speaking draws, because when I created the agenda for today's show, they hadn't yet done the French-speaking draw, right? So this is actually news to me as we sit here live talking about it. So let me share my screen again. So we saw an announcement. This was a news release today. French is an integral part, blah, 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 blah. On May 31st, Minister Fraser announced, let me put this link in the chat as well so you can follow along if you'd like. Today, the Honorable Blabbity Blue Blue, on behalf of Blabbity Blah, announced the first Francophone round for category-based selection. This focus on French-speaking newcomers will help promote the French language and address labor shortages in communities outside of Quebec. Category-based selection signals Canada's commitment to attracting top talent and helping meet the need for French-speaking workers to support the economy, Blabbity Blue. Okay, so I mean, it's pretty much just announcing the draw, and then the draw happened. So as we can see today, there was another draw. They invited 2,300 people. So that's a pretty significant amount of people. Minimum score requirement of 439 with the French language proficiency. Sophia says, I know people who are in STEM occupations who have not been invited yet. Did they meet the minimum requirement though, Sophia? Because as you can see, you not only have to be eligible under the program, you still have to meet the minimum score requirement, right? So if they were eligible through STEM, but they had a score below 486, they weren't going to be invited to apply. Now, I'm kind of curious about this French speaking, and I'm kind of curious to hear about what you folks think as well. Why this might be a dumb question, right? So please correct me if I'm wrong. But how many French speakers do we actually need outside of Quebec? Again, maybe this is a naive question, but do we really need more French speakers outside the province of Quebec? I don't know. Are there a lot of job openings that require people to be bilingual that are not being filled? I don't know. I'm just curious about why they're doing such big French-speaking draws, right? I've lived and grown up in Ontario my whole life. I don't speak French. Nobody that I talk to or work with really speaks French. There isn't much content in French in the province. So I'm curious about this. Is this like we're just trying to hang on to the fact that French is a second language? Or are there actually too many jobs that are open with bilingual requirements and we quite literally need more people who can speak French outside of Quebec, right? Keep in mind, this is for outside of Quebec. Obviously in French, you're much better off speaking French. But outside of Quebec, how many job openings are there that absolutely require French? I don't know. I might be naive on this topic. So if somebody else has some input or maybe has more information that I'm missing or I'm just totally ignorant because I'm an English-speaking Torontonian, then please let me know. Reza says hi. Hey, Reza, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in live. So, that's one thing I've been thinking about when I look at these three draws from this week. STEM, of course, makes sense. Healthcare, of course, maybe even more so than STEM, right? Because the tech industry has been hit hard in the last year, right? So this year, probably much more so than the last 2, 3, 4 years, we actually have more people in tech that are still looking for work, right? Maybe that's why the draw was smaller. Healthcare, I think everybody knows, right? Healthcare trades, we need more people, right? But this is a serious question. Again, maybe a naive, stupid question. How many more French speakers do we need outside of the province of Quebec? I don't know. I'd be curious to learn more. If anybody has more insight, please let me know. Okay, let's move on to some immigration plus AI, right? One of our most favorite topics, especially as the co-founder of Visto AI, which is an immigration tech platform. So I do like to talk about this a little bit. Heidi says maybe there are people needed to speak French because of more government requirements outside of Quebec. So that's what I'm kind of thinking of, Heidi. Is it like government positions? Is it maybe like a French company with offices outside of Quebec? I don't know. Government makes sense. But are there that many open roles that they simply cannot fill? You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. It's an interesting take. Maybe it is government roles, right, where they do require bilingual. I have no idea. So, but that's a good thought. So in terms of the AI, I like to think I had a pretty interesting article go live this week. So I'm also a member of CILA. CILA is the Canadian Immigration Lawyers Association. Some really good people over at CILA. I'm going to link to my article that I wrote for them that went live this week called AI in the Immigration Industry, the Canadian Immigration Industry, How One May Affect the Other Sooner Than We Think. And what we're trying to do is, move the conversation forward about AI and immigration and, how they might overlap and stuff like that. CILA has some pretty good articles on a very wide variety of topics related to Canadian immigration, right? So if you go on their website under articles, you can see refugee stuff, some other stuff about AI, case law and immigration, temporary IRCC policy statements. So CELA puts out some really good stuff. Make sure to check out their website if you're interested. And of course, make sure to check out my article on how immigration and AI are probably going to merge quicker than we think, right? We're already seeing it thanks to tools like Visto, right? Helping immigration firms improve operations, how that might affect pricing, how that might affect customer service, and stuff like that. So give it a read if you'd like. Definitely check it out. And if you do, let me know what you think. I'm always open to feedback and appreciative of feedback. Heidi says, see my comment. Maybe there are people needed to speak French because of more. Right. So I think I covered that, Heidi. No, maybe that's it. I don't know. I'd be curious to look up, like, for example, how many open jobs are there in Ottawa that can't be filled because there's not enough bilingual people. I don't know. That's probably a good proxy to find out how big of a need it is. Okay, second last item, and of course, if there's any more comments, questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I got two more things. Really just one more thing. What I wanted to do is give a quick Visto update. So for those of you who don't know, Visto is an immigration platform. Let me share my screen. Visto is an immigration platform that Canadian immigration law firms can use to prep applications faster than ever before, right? So we use automation, we use AI to basically make it easier than ever. I'll link to this in the comments as well if you're interested. If you're a Canadian immigration lawyer, Canadian immigration consultant, study abroad agent, stuff like that. If you're spending a lot of time manually filling out forms, drag and dropping, merging and compressing PDFs, all that kind of stuff. If you're spending a lot of time on like glorified admin work, you might want to check it out, right? It's basically the tool I wish I had when I was practicing as an immigration lawyer, right? No more admin work is what we're trying to replace. Mira says, totally agree with you. I think the government has made a commitment to encourage French language immigration and have a quota to meet. But that's one of my questions, Mira, is like, are they just inviting large numbers of French speakers just because they set their own quota? Or are they doing it because we quite legitimately need more French-speaking people to fill open jobs? If it's the former, that seems bad. If it's the latter, that makes sense, right? Kayla says, came in a bit late, but the French speakers outside of Quebec is a great way to fortify the Franco-Canadian communities. Yeah, I don't know enough about it, Michaela. And like I said, if you have more information, or if you or Mira or somebody else has more information, how dire are those needs? And the reason I ask is twofold. Number one is, the rest are pretty obvious, right? We obviously need more healthcare workers. We arguably need more tech workers, right? It's changed a little bit in the last year. We need more trades. We need more transport, and we need more agricultural workers, right? We can all kind of like objectively agree that there's shortages there. But like, I don't know how many companies outside of Quebec are lacking people who can speak French. And that's just because I don't have enough information, right? I just don't look into it enough. Michaela says, many national organizations are lacking truly bilingual employees. Okay, so maybe there's my answer, right? So that's just what I wanted to confirm because I don't know enough of that information. If there are legitimate labor market needs of French speakers, then that's great. I'm glad they've done it, and hopefully this helps solve the problem, right? But if this is just like the government just wants to have more people that can speak French because it's our second language, but not necessarily because there's actually job openings that aren't going filled, then I would argue that that's a bad thing. But it sounds like that's not the case. So that's good, and thank you for sharing. Okay, AI. So long story short here is, if you are an immigration professional, lawyer, consultant, study abroad agent, that kind of stuff, definitely check out the website. We have one-click PDF filling. We have one-click merge and compressing PDFs. We have one-click generating documents with AI. So we like to say that if it used to take you 10 hours to prep a study permit application, with us it'll take you 4 or 5. So if you're interested in that, definitely check out the website. I threw the link in the comments, and or just send me a message on LinkedIn, and we can take it from there. We're in the process of automating even more processes, right? So LMIs, express entry, spousal sponsorships, all that kind of stuff, filling out profiles, all that kind of stuff, making it really quick. So anyways, I think that is it for me. We are at the 30-minute mark. If there's any more comments, questions, or topics that anybody wanted to cover, now is your last chance. Again, what I'll mention is crazy week in express entry. It'll be interesting to see if this continues in the future. I don't know, right? I really don't know what to expect. I think another 2 weeks will go by and maybe they'll do industry-specific draws for those other three. Agri, transpo, and trades, because those are the three that they haven't done, right? This week they did 3. They did French-speaking, STEM, and healthcare, but there's 3 more. So I'm interested to see when they do those other 3. But time will tell. Gabriel says, Canada needs more tech workers, but you apply, and even having the qualifications, they turn you down with basic rejection emails. Well, Gabriel, I would imagine part of it may depend on your exact type of role. But I think the other problem is 2 years ago, that was a totally different story, right? The problem is about a year ago, our tech industry took a huge hit. Really, the tech industry in like most of North America took a huge hit, right? All the big tech companies did layoffs, the Facebooks, the Amazons, blah, 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 Twitter, they did huge layoffs. And so this year, much more so than like the last 5 years, there's probably less hiring than average. Now, that doesn't make it, that's not necessarily the only reason. Maybe it depends on your knock code. But I know for a fact either way that it can be very difficult to get a job as a newcomer into Canada. I think one thing that a lot of Canadian companies could probably do better is be a little bit more open-minded to foreign talent, right? But there's only so much that I can do on that topic. Isaac says, hello, Josh. Hey, Isaac. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. Heidi says, do you think that AI in general is going to reduce the number of people coming to Canada physically, replaced by machines? That's a good question, Heidi. I don't think so, because for the time being, we still need more people, right? Like, the problem is this. If your population doesn't keep increasing so far, right, the way the world's worked so far, is if your population doesn't continue increasing, then your economy shrinks, right? So it's not even necessarily about the output of AI. It's about, number one, Canadians don't birth enough children, right? So the average couple in Canada has something like 1.8 children. So what does that mean? If we don't have anybody coming in from outside Canada, it means our population will flatten and then eventually slowly start to decline. And that's really bad for economies, right? Because it means spending goes down and, all the numbers, I'm not an economist, but all the numbers go down, and that's a bad thing for our GDP and our economy, right? The second problem is our population right now is very lopsided and aged heavy, which means a big proportion of our population are old, right? I hate to say it, and I hope that doesn't sound offensive, but numbers are numbers, right? A big part of our population are old and either retired or soon to be retiring, right? So when you're going to lose a good portion of your workforce, that means we need more people, right? Now, arguably, some of those jobs might slowly get replaced by AI over time, right? But for the short term, until the AI gets really good, which may be 5, 10, 20, 50 years from now, we still need people in trades, people in driving trucks, people, out in the farms, people sitting at computers doing whatever, service workers, et cetera, et cetera. So I think for the next 5 to 10 years, Canadian immigration numbers will continue to be big and potentially growing. But it'll be interesting to see over 5-10 years, as AI gets better and replaces some of the work, we might not need as many people to get the same amount of stuff done, right? But again, who's going to pay? Who's going to pay for all the healthcare and all the old folks and retirements homes, right, and hospitals and stuff like that, right? You need tax-paying citizens, right? So it'll be interesting to see. It's a good question, though. Michaela says lots of business opportunities with French-speaking partners, both in Quebec and on the international stage. Think Bombardier, Ubisoft. Yeah, that's a great point as well, Michaela. Being able to unlock those type of partnerships, if you don't have French-speaking employees, you're probably not going to get that done, right? Working more with partners or clients in Quebec, right? Partners or clients in France. Partners or clients in other French-speaking countries. For example, like there's a whole bunch of French-speaking countries in Africa, as far as I understand. So I guess that's another good point too, if you want to unlock those industries, those potential partners, those potential clients. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. So other than that, I think that's it for me today. Wanted to thank everybody for tuning in live. In case you didn't tune in at the beginning, you want to watch from the beginning, watch it all over again, maybe you have a friend or family member who might be interested, especially in this Express Entry news. After this stream, the recording will remain live, so you'll be able to watch the whole thing on LinkedIn. And then probably within a few days, I'll also stick it on our YouTube channel as well. Let me link to our YouTube channel in case you want to subscribe to us there. And what happens is I like to go live every 2 weeks. So I will be live again in 2 weeks from today, same time, same place, right? So Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on LinkedIn. So make sure you're following me or connected with me on LinkedIn. And if you want an email reminder every week and you want to keep up to date with all the news, make sure to join our email list as well. So I just linked you to our email list page. You can stick in your email, subscribe there. Every Friday you'll get an email from me summarizing some key news and reminding you about these Visto show lives and updates and stuff like that too. So anyways, that is it for me. Thank you very much to everybody who tuned in, who stuck around, who had comments, who had questions. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your Friday. Make sure to check us out on all the socials that I just linked. Stay safe, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.